Welcome to the Council of Moms. I'm Lisa Valentine Clark. I'm a mom, and I'm your host today for today's council, where we really dive deep into the questions that you want to talk about, the ones you don't want to talk about, the ones you need to talk about. We talk about it all, keeping a good sense of humor, offering a little bit of advice or perspective, and hopefully a lot of hope that if we can't figure it out, then maybe it's okay. Something along those lines, because we like to say, the Council of Moms, remember when you had plans? Plans were fun. I remember plans.
It's a good time.
Council of Moms, remember when you had money for those plans? Money. What is that? The Council of Moms, remember when you had energy for those plans that you thought you'd be spending your money on? Yeah, that was good. And as always, Council of Moms, made with real moms. We're all real moms. We're real down to earth. We're not going to sugarcoat it. I'm Lisa Valentine Clark, mother of 5. I have kids from age 27 to 17. They're all very, very different individuals. So I feel like every kid is like learning how to be a mom all over again. That's kind of the stage of parenting that I'm in. Also with us today, we have...
Aloha, everyone. I'm G. I am also a mother of 5 with adulting children, so I'm relearning my motherhood situation.
Relearning, I love that.
I'm Erica. I am a mother of 5 as well. 5 boys. We specialize. And I'm thinking if you gave me another 35 years, I'd have this figured out.
Okay, cool. We'll check back in. We're going to circle back. But for today, we're just going to do the best we can.
That's right.
And finally.
Yes, I'm Wendy, mama to 4 from 16 to 26, and I have 2 wonderful grandbabies. I don't know if I'll have it figured out in 35 years. I'm not sure. But that's okay, because it's fun along the way, right?
It is fun along the way. And I like that we all have this kind of perspective. So let's see if it stays fun with this question today. Hey moms, I'm feeling discouraged. My Instagram feed is full of parenting advice, and it's really good stuff. How to regulate your emotions and your kids' emotions, and what to do instead of lecturing, and the things you should never say because it introduces shame. And I feel like a bad mom. I've made all the mistakes, and I know everybody says you can repair mistakes in parenting, but at the same time, nobody really tells those stories, including me. But I thought if anyone would be willing to talk about this, maybe the Council of Moms would. So only if you're comfortable sharing, what parenting mistakes have you made? And if you were able to recover from it, what did it look like? Bum, bum, bum.
Well,
Hide off screen.
I mean, it's Santa's list of mistakes, right? And then the recovery is a few years ago, my husband and I decided we're starting to save for therapy instead of college.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We did our best. We've done it.
I know. And I really do pay for therapy for my kids because
Same.
they've been through a lot. Yeah. Not my parenting specifically, but I'm sure it'll come up. And I joke to them, but it's also actually, there are some jokes that come from a very real place where I say, just tell your therapist that I tried really hard. Like I tried real hard is what I like to say. And I just think knowing that you're constantly evolving and changing your mind, and that's okay, I hope gives a cue to my kids. That's my overall philosophy before we dive down into the specific examples. But it has come, I think this is something really important to talk about, because with the advent of social media, there is this perception that everybody else has it figured out. Mm-hmm. And parenting has never been that way. Every generation has made their own mistakes. Every individual has. But somehow with social media especially, we are giving the perception of like all good advice is applicable to everyone. And that's just not possible physically or emotionally. And it needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I think like you said, Lisa, just in your introduction, that all of your kids are different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all of my kids are totally different. Just when you think you have something figured out with one kid, it does not work for the next kid, which means I feel like I'm a parent like 4 times over differently with each of my kids. I love what you said about just realizing that you're going to change and evolve as a parent while you're doing all of this and just acknowledging that within yourself. I think when you're young and with littles, and especially before you have children, you have this idea of things that you're never going to do and things that you're always going to do. And oh boy, does that just smack you in the face really quickly. So I think being a parent and just acknowledging that I'm still growing and developing as a person and changing and realizing what works and what doesn't work. I made a couple notes about this for myself. I'm a really good overreactor, you guys. I don't know.
Tell us.
I don't know if you're like me. I'm really good at overreacting in situations.
Overreacting and making things dramatic? What are you talking about? What are you insinuating? That I'm like that? Yeah.
So I actually texted all of my kids about this.
No, you didn't.
I was real brave, you guys. I was
You're
big and
this little
That is
soldier
brave.
here today.
I was big and brave, and I texted all of them what the question was. So I was like, hit me with it. Tell me.
I can take it.
Yeah.
Like what was not good, but we recovered. I can think of many situations with my kids where I probably overreacted. But I think the tricky thing about parenting is you don't realize what you're overreacting about until a different situation happens where you're
Ooh,
like,
tell me what you
"Oh."
mean by that. That's a good point, I think.
Yeah, so I think sometimes, and obviously this comes with learning and developing. When I first had teenagers, I reacted about a lot of things, probably too much. Screen time, just things they were listening to, things like that I really freaked out about. And then I had real life situations like bullying and friends that were using drugs and suicidal thoughts and all of that. And I just was like, oh, this is the stuff I probably should have saved my overreacting for and not that.
Yeah.
And when I went to therapy the first time for myself about that time in my life, the therapist was like, you should know that this is very normal, overreacting about things. So the thing that you should do first in those situations is just pause and breathe for a minute because you immediately want to react.
Yeah.
And maybe just try to underreact a little bit until your brain has caught up with what you want to say, what you want to do, how the kid or the other person is in that situation too. Give everybody a chance to bring the temperature down before you react and say what you want to say. Because I probably, even though my kids were so kind and didn't say anything, I know that I have said things that were probably upsetting to them or not supportive, or I overreacted and I made the situation worse. Where if I would have just taken a breath and been like, okay, how important is this? Is this more important than my relationship with my kid? What's important here? So I think for me, the biggest thing I have learned is to just pause for a second and take a breath before I respond to anything.
Wendy, where were you? Where were you?
I tell you what, I tell this to all my new parents, friends. I'm like, listen, you can call me anytime and nothing you say will shock me.
I think that is really good. And I know you in real life, Wendy, and you are like that. Like you can tell me anything and nothing will shock me. And
Nothing will scare me. Yeah.
One thing I wish I'd had that advice for, and hopefully this isn't too sensitive for people, but when you find pornography in your home with your teenagers, I way overreacted with the oldest. And don't get me wrong, this is not to say that I'm okay with it. What I'm okay with is struggle, right? It's okay to struggle. It's okay that we can go through this together. I had not gotten to that place with my oldest child. And we did some real damage by overreacting with that. And I heard someone say that your reaction to your child's pornography experience is going to be how they then view themselves and pornography for the rest of their lives. Now, not to say they can't change that, but you do risk that. And I just thought, oh, great. So freaking out, shame, anger, perfect. We did great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it's so hard when you've never experienced it before, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was traumatic for me too. I mean, I'm sure it was traumatic for him. I just saw him as being more of a perpetrator than a victim. And I really needed to think about this as more, here's my sweet kid who had no intention really of doing anything wrong. It's just curiosity and, and whatnot. But there's a lot to be said for apology, and there's a lot to be said for owning up to what you wish you had done. And we've had a lot of those conversations. So at least there's that. I do totally regret overreacting, though. So thank you, Wendy, for saying that. That's so spot on.
So well said.
I also think it's really hard for us being parents, like you had mentioned, Lisa. Each generation kind of has their struggle. And I think our struggle really is social media, not in just our kids having access to a lot of things at such a young age, but we being accountable. Like we're under a microscope with parenting because they see what should be in a family, what shouldn't be in a family. But like you're saying, each family is unique and different. And even though social media comes into aspect, I think with our family, we kind of pull it way back. It's like, that is not us. That is not how it is in this house, and not like we're ruling with an iron fist, but you really got to set the priorities and the perspective for your family so that you're picking your battles. It's like, we're not a family that has all this resource and has the luxury to go vacationing and go on all these trips. We're this family, right? But there's joy and there's growth in this family in a way that we can appreciate. I think that is the value of a parent, whether it's good or bad. You are the parent. Like you need to take ownership of that. And we're not going to be perfect. And they need to understand that. Like you're saying, this is our first time going through that. But I think in us being vulnerable, they see our intent to try and to do a good job. And just take the hat of perfectionism and throw it out the window because it ain't happening, this time around. And I just feel like I was blessed in their early stages to be a stay-at-home mom. And I gotta just thank, the stars for being able to be with my kids because when they're young, those formative years are so important. And the way you talk to them, the way you process with them, the way you encourage them, I think goes miles as they get into those teenage years that are, I don't want to hear you, Mom. I don't care what you're saying. Like you're talking, yeah. And I'm just like in La La Land right now. I'm checked out because, so anyways, I just feel like it's a very complex question when you're talking about parenthood. I didn't have the courage, Wendy, to ask my kids. I was like, no, you don't know the whole story, so we're not going to ask you that question.
Context matters.
They were kind.
Let me tell you what I was going through at the same time.
Yeah,
I tell you what, I'm sure my kids had a side conversation also this morning
no,
about
for sure.
this is what I
Have a side
really
text
want to
group.
tell Mom.
They have a side text group, But I think our kids, when you bring them up in that vulnerability, like I'm not perfect, our life is not perfect, but we are trying, we love you. It allows them to have that give and take, And you don't have to tell them everything. You don't have to divulge all that because you're the parent and you're going to own that separate from trying to do good, for your children. But yeah, I think we got to give ourselves a little more credit than we do sometimes.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the sensitivity of this question and the way that she asked it, because it's like only if you're comfortable sharing, what did that actually specifically look like and that recovery look like? That's something that really weighs on me. I agree. I feel like, if I could go back, I would be so much more patient and so much more curious when my kids came to me, especially when they were little and didn't match their energy, but just was always like the adult. And I think back to well, that's easy for me to say now because I'm well rested and I like my house isn't always a mess and people aren't always like kicking me or whatever. It's a different reality when you're caring for small children. Your body is not your own. Your home is not it's just, when she said the word chaos, I was like, yeah, I remember that. But there is this part, because I value being a mother so much, of like, oh, I wish I were more patient. I wish I didn't overreact all of those times. I wish that I was always my best self for them, because that's what they deserved. And it's not. And I do find that there are some conversations, like that's what that recovery looks like. Like, I really like this question, because this is the part that I don't think that we see on social media a lot, or that we don't talk about, because there's a lot of shame for us as moms to be like, do you know I said this thing to my kid and it haunts me? I remember one time just squeezing my little kids, being like, why are you like this? Like, why? Like, oh, like that will haunt me for the rest. Like I didn't hurt him or anything like that. But just like, I remember I felt so frustrated and like that. Why do I need to feel like nothing's that big of a deal? And like, I think that recovery looks like conversations that are really honest, like Wendy is suggesting too, like where you stop and you listen, or like Erica and G, that you like say these things of like, hey, we want to take the reins back. And you are telling them, like, it's like, I call it show your cards in parenting. And lastly, too, part of the grief that I've had about the time that I spent caring for my husband when he had ALS and his needs were so intense, is I remember at the time being like, my kids aren't going to suffer, and I'm still going to be this intense mom, and I'm still going to prioritize them. Well, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I know that my grief changed me physiologically, and I had a lot of blind spots. And so there are things that I slipped through the cracks, or ways that I wasn't as present as I wanted to be for different kids for different reasons. And that has been like devastating for me to like really acknowledge. And as time has gone by, and it's been, 5 years since his death, and I've been able to, the repair looks like having honest conversations with my kids about revisiting that time. And for me, just apologizing to my kids, saying, I know you needed me at that moment, and I thought I was there for you, but I realize now that I wasn't in the way that I wanted to. And I'm so sorry that was just the reality of your situation, of my situation. Yeah. And then we have these conversations, and it's really healing. And I don't carry that shame like anymore. But those are hard conversations to have. But they're worth having, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think one of the most heavy but also heartening phrases is that you will always be a mother. Like, it doesn't end when they're 18. And so while we may make mistakes and we may regret things, you're still a mom. You still get to make that right for the rest of their lives by showing them the attention that they need for, you know what I mean? Even if they're 60 years old and you're 80, you can still be the mom you want to be. So it doesn't end at 18. You are always a mom. And so, yeah, we make a really long list of mistakes when they're young, but we have a whole life to try and make that right.
Sometimes we're always so focused on what we did wrong, but there's a lot of good things we're doing right.
Yeah.
And so if we let that absorb so much of our energy, and I'm not saying it's not great to kind of reflect and take value from what happened. Many times as we're raising our children, I wanted to make things easier for them. I didn't want
Right.
them to have hardship that they didn't necessarily need. And my husband was the opposite. Like, no, let them do it. Let them figure it out, because he always has this saying, like, if I'm harder on you now, it's going to be easier for you later. And so I appreciate you sharing, Lisa, because I don't think those times should be looked at as bad, because I feel like in every struggle, there is value and there is strength. And I
Yeah.
just feel like to take that away from our kids, they're going to lose a lot of grit that they need to be an adult, And so those times where it was a struggle, I think if we turn it around and say, what can we learn from this? What can we do better moving forward? Because I feel like when we look at our parents, it's like, they didn't have to answer to anybody. It's like there was no social media.
Yeah.
There was no counsel to say, you're bad, you're wrong. It's like, nope, this is how we're living our lives.
You don't
and
know where
we're-
your kids are. They're just wandering in the neighborhood. Like, yeah, nobody was
Oh my gosh.
shaming them.
Right? And
No.
so we kind of have to be able to hold on to the perspective of just human relationships and the dynamics of those. And like you're saying, we're never going to stop being a mom. And I think the growth that we make as they get older to show the context a little bit more as they're getting to that stage in life, they're going to appreciate us even more.
Well
Yeah, I
said.
love what you have all said about just being honest with our kids and with each other. It's not always fun to admit, like, oh, I handled that wrong. Sorry. And now I know, can we backtrack a little bit? And this is what I would have liked to have said.
There's so much value in admitting that. Is there something that maybe is too like a little bit less high stakes that you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. Like for me, like policy that could be maybe helpful to some, I don't know. Like I regret giving my kid a cell phone at 14. I totally do.
Yeah,
And I tried to like change it later and I tried, but like,
it was too
no, I
late.
shouldn't have done that.
Every single thing that you give your kid is a door that's now open and it can't be closed. So like, so but one thing that's really small that I wish I had done so much more is I wish I had said yes more than no. And that's been kind of an easy one to fix because now I can, because it's not super high stakes, but there's and this actually goes back to what Wendy was saying about not overreacting. There's so many things that are actually an easy yes. They're not life threatening. It's not a big
Yeah.
deal. Just say yes. Because then when you say no, then the no matters. And then, you can really put your weight behind it and they'll respect that a little bit more, I think, if you can say yes more. It's one thing I wish I had done.
So I do have one of those situations that one of my kiddos did text to the group text about when I asked them. So
Hot
my
take.
daughter Molly, gosh, probably 4 years ago. So she would have been 19. She still wasn't home, we already had 2 cats. She wanted this cat that somebody was getting rid of that was an indoor-outdoor cat. And at that point, I just had a lot going on in life, overwhelmed with life. And I was just like, no, why would you think that you can bring a cat, into our home? You're 19, go get an apartment and live with your cat. I said, okay, this is a good parenting. I said no, and then the cat showed up.
Oh no.
So the cat showed up, so I had a big boohoo in my bathroom by myself about how nobody listens to me and my feelings don't matter. And Molly texted me that this morning, and she was like, when you said no to Bo and that it would have been too hard for me, and she was like, and now he is the best thing in her life right now. Like he is her like reason to come home. He is her happiness. He is so good for her. And so as a parent, yes, I even texted back this morning. I was like, you're totally right. It wasn't the best thing for me, but it was the best thing for her. And I said no, and she did it anyway. And we had a lot of fight over it. But now, years later, I can be like, you're totally right. That I probably should have just said yes. Like, I wasn't going to take care of the cat. She took care of the cat. It was an easy one I could have and should have said yes to right away, and I didn't. So, but now, the other thing I was going to say is as a mom, as your kids get older, it's totally okay to let your failures become a joke. Like,
Yeah. Amen.
The
that.
one thing that Maddie said to the group text, she's my 26-year-old, she just sent this quote that said, "Back it up, Carl," which is a joke on me because I was thinking of that video of that guy in the fireworks that has his wheelchair and the fireworks go off. And the phrase is, back it up, Terry. And I, trying to be funny to my kids, was like, back it up, Carl. And they all looked at me. They were like, what? So I said it again, and they were like, oh my gosh, they lost their minds. They were laughing so hard. So now every time I do something dumb, they're always like, back it up, Carl. I'm like, oh my gosh. So even though it's a little
That's pretty
a little
great.
bit hurtful, is let your kids
Let
take
it.
those opportunities to be like, Mom, remember? That was so dumb. Way to go. Like, let yourself laugh with your kids, years later. I would not have laughed about the Bo situation 4 years ago, but now I can be like, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is okay. This is allowed.
Yeah. And I was going to say, too, like Lisa, you sharing about feeling that with your kids. I definitely had that time with Molly when she was 15 and we were going through some really hard mental health, suicidal thought, things. And I know that my younger kids got, very little attention. And I struggled with that for years. And I think in talking to all of you, I've realized, okay, it probably was not the best situation, but I was teaching them, like, you're going to go through this in your life. You can't be 100% for everything in your life. And there are times that other things just have to zoom out and you just can't give attention to those things. So I think in doing that, in Lisa's situation, in Erica and G, all of us have had situations where things with our kids we just have not been able to give attention to. We couldn't get to the game. We couldn't be at the performance. We couldn't give them what they needed, but we're showing them how to be adults because you just can't. You can't give 100%. And some things in your life are going to require 80, 90% of your focus for
Some
a certain
things you
amount
don't
of
see
time.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Teaching them how to do that throughout their lives and to be nice to themselves and ask for apologies and say, ugh, I messed that up. That wasn't great.
Yeah,
But like Erica said,
yeah.
we have years and years and years with them.
that's right.
I hate those memes that are like, you have 18 years with your kids.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, stop
Like, I
it.
hope not. I hope I'm
And
around
then they
them.
move back in. Yeah, I get it.
Yes, G can tell us.
Oh, do I? Do I have
Oh.
18?
G
That's
can
where
just
was
put
that
that,
promise?
just put that meme on the fridge. You only
Yeah.
have 18 years with your kids.
Ha ha. It's
that's
true
a
though, we don't parent in a vacuum, And I think that my desire of like, my kids are the best, so they deserve the best, so I want to give them my best is a great ideal, but is just not the reality. And we don't acknowledge it of like, sometimes you're going to get sick. There's going to be a family tragedy. You're not going to be performing your best. Something's going to go wrong. Lots of things go wrong. Lots of things go wrong at the same time, simultaneously over a long period of time. Like, you don't know. And that's good and bad. And but knowing that you're in it, that their immediate needs will always be taken care of. And that it might not always be the ideal situation is a great life lesson.
Yeah. I also think we need to realize that the way we've been talking about this, we've taken on the responsibility all to ourselves. And there are other parents, there are grandparents, there are
Yes.
neighbors, there are teachers. There are so many resources that while we may not be center stage for our kids, there are other cast members that are there to support them, and so, yeah, we could beat ourselves up all day for not being the lead, but at the end of the day, it takes a whole cast to help our kids.
I love that. And those people can step in those situations where you're like, I
Yes.
have to spend 80% of my time doing this. Could you help get this kid to whatever, or ask your siblings to call your kids and chat with them, or I love that, Erica. Rely on other people. We're not alone.
Yeah, we're not alone.
We're not alone. The Council of Moms. I love that. I think this is a good place to sort of land the plane of like, this is a hard thing to talk about. So I really appreciate you guys being honest about it and using real examples and being vulnerable about it. I do think that it matters, and that if we can give each other permission to acknowledge mistakes and try to repair, that it makes stronger families, and stronger families make stronger communities. I do think that it's like within all of our best interests to do that. So thank you so much for listening to the Council of Moms. We are a production of BYU Radio. Wherever you're listening, maybe you're watching over on YouTube, you can see us rolling our eyes at each other and at ourselves of like, oh, you think that's bad? No. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and please subscribe so you don't miss anything, and share an episode. Maybe share this episode to a mom that you love. And as always, send us your questions. You can comment right here, or you can direct message us on Instagram as well. Thanks.